So this time around, I want to look at something you may never have heard of before if you come from a language like PHP, and you've definitely never heard of if you've never done any programming before, but it's the concept of pointers. And pointers are incredibly useful, and they are often a source of some confusion to people. But they're not that hard, particularly in Go, which handles them really, really well. So we have seen variables already, like var myString. And that is a string. And I'm going to store a value in my string. I'll call my string has the value of green, a color. Okay? So I'm not using it yet, still an error. So let's just print that out so we don't have an error. Log.println. My string is set to, and then a comma, and then the actual value it's set to, which is just the variable itself. No problem. So if I run that, you know what's going to happen. It's going to print my string is set to green with a capital G. And it does. Okay, no surprises so far, and nothing about pointers so far. Let's come down here and create a new function, func, and I'm going to call it change using pointer, which is not a great name, but it's exactly what I'm going to do. It will take one parameter, which I'll call s, and it is a type string, but it's not an ordinary string. It has an asterisk in front of it, and it is a type of pointer to a string. Okay? So you can't see that because it's grayed out, so let's actually do something here. New value. I'm going to create a new variable called new value, and I'm going to call it red, store in that the value of red with the capital R. And I'm going to say my argument, which is s, I'm going to say a star in front of that, so a pointer to s is given new value. I've just assigned red to it. I could have just put red here, but I'm just making it light up. And then after I print that line up here, let me just try to put it like this. I'm going to call that function. I will call change using pointer, and I will pass in. I can't pass in my variable called my string because that'll give me an error. My string, and it says, oh, look at that, there's an error. What's the error? Well, the error is that change using pointer down here, it actually expects to have a pointer to a string. And if I roll over this, it says cannot use my string type string as type string pointer. The little asterisk in front means it's a pointer. Well, what I need is a reference to that variable. All a pointer is it points to a specific location in memory and gives you a means of getting that particular location in memory. Well, as you probably guessed, when you create a variable, you're creating a variable in memory, and you're storing a value at a particular memory location. So what I need to do is, instead of actually passing a parameter as an actual variable to this function, I want to pass a reference to that variable. I want to point to the location in memory where that variable's contents exists. And I can do that by putting an ampersand in front of it. Oops, get it in the right spot. Put an ampersand in front of it. And now it actually works. So I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to copy this log print line, and then I'll tell you why I'm going through all this trouble. I'll say after func call, after I'm calling this function, my string is set to some value. So what do you think is going to happen here? Bearing in mind that this function we created returns nothing, and that the variable, my string up here, exists only in the scope of the main function. So according to what I told you about scope, I really should not be able to affect this variable, my string, down here. And I'm actually not trying to address that variable by name down here. And since this function returns nothing, and I'm just calling it, I'm apparently not storing anything back in here. So what you think might happen is start the program, find the main function, great, create a variable called my string, store the value green in it, print it out. My string is set to green. And then I call this function that returns nothing, and then I print that again. After function call, my string is set to, you might think it would be green. Obviously it's not, or I wouldn't be spending all this time talking about it, but look at what I am going to do. First of all, let's run it. So I'll run it. Look at the output. My string is set to green. After function call, my string is set to red. So all I did in here was I took the pointer. So here I said, pass a reference to this variable, to this function. Then this function says, okay, I'm now storing the value of that is nothing more than a reference to this variable in memory. And if I come in here just to show this, and put log.println, and I say s is set to, and then I just print s out, what's it going to print? Well, let's see what it does. Go run main go. S is set to, and then we have this hexadecimal number. Well, what the heck is that? That is nothing more than pointing to a specific location on my in my computer's RAM, its memory, and saying S is set to whatever you find at this memory address. So now that I have that memory address, I'm creating a new string called new value, storing the value of red in it, and I'm saying go to that memory address that you received up here and change its contents from whatever they happen to be to this value. So what I've effectively done is changed a locally scoped variable, a variable that's scoped to the main function. I've changed its value by passing a reference or a pointer to that variable to some function. So that's what pointers are. So when you need to get the reference to a variable, you put an ampersand in front of it. When you need to refer to an actual pointer, you put an asterisk in front of it. Now this will become very useful to us as time goes on. I'm only introducing it to you now because you may never have heard of pointers before, and you're going to have to at some point in the not too distant future. They're a little confusing at first, but the thing to remember is a reference to a variable, put an ampersand in front of it. To actually create a pointer type, put an asterisk in front of it. So ampersands for reference, asterisks for the actual pointer itself when you're pointing to a location in memory. All right, so just keep that in mind. The best way to learn these things is to actually use them, and when we start using this, it will make more sense if it doesn't make sense to you now.